of Professor Dipankar Deb. Professor Deb is a professor at Center of AI and Robotics, Indian Institute of Technology, Mandi, with over 2 decades of experience spanning academia, industry, and innovation leadership. He holds a PhD in electrical engineering from University of Virginia, USA, and he has worked in advanced R&D roles in United States and India, including GE Global Research and Baron Associates before joining the IIT system. Professor Deb has published more than 60 SCI indexed journals, authored 12 authored or edited 12 books with leading international publishers, and holds 18 granted patents across India and United States. His research focus on adaptive and nonlinear control, aerial robotics, machine learning applications, and renewable energy systems, with several technologies translated into patented deployable solutions for sustainability and rural impact. He has presented his work at premier control conferences such as ACC and CTC, is consistently ranked among top 2% researcher worldwide by Stanford elsewhere, a senior member of IEEE and fellow IE, Institute of Engineers, India and IETE. Professor Deb has played a pivotal role in shaping innovation ecosystem as director incubation at IIT Mandi, leading large-scale incubation, policy drafting, and nationally funded programs in entrepreneurship, education, and deep technological developments. So, with this vast experience, I request Dr. Deb to start his talk.
Thank
Participants
you.
are requested to follow the talk diligently. It will be of great help for your own academics. Thank you. Sir,
Thank
you
you
may
so
start,
much.
sir. Yes.
Thank you for very kind words. So the talk for today is centered on hybrid wind farms. So the first thing that I would like to do is I would like to define each of the terms at the outset in this title so that the context is very well understood and clear to you, and maybe then you can follow all the different aspects of it very nicely. So basically we are using machine learning or machine intelligent techniques. Okay, this is not deep learning. In deep learning, it is not that always machine. Some people have an idea that machine learning is something and deep learning is something bigger than that, and always bigger and better and things like that. It is not so. In this application, deep learning cannot be used because we don't have that much data. Okay, so the relevant data points that will be available for this is around 800 to 1000 data points for every prediction that is made. So machine intelligent machine learning techniques are the most suitable ones. Okay, so that's number one. What we are doing? We are doing forecasting. Forecasting means prediction of something in future, what will happen based on what we know now and before. Okay, so something we ahead of time we will predict about some decisions using machine learning algorithm, something that we will do based on the past and present data. So we are doing forecasting, and we are doing it for hybrid wind farms. What is hybrid? Hybrid here refers to usage of battery energy storage systems. Okay, hybrid can be anything. Wind can have hybrid with solar, can have hybrid with fuel cells, can have hybrid with so many different things. In this application, we have taken hybrid of, when we say hybrid wind farms, we mean wind turbines, a conglomeration of wind turbines which have individual batteries. Okay, every turbine in these wind farms have their own batteries. Okay, and Please keep a note of this particular point, because sometimes when wind farms have their own integrated battery energy storage systems, that will not work here, because in this case we are considering the wind wakes also. That means some of the wind turbines may not get the free stream velocity, and so they should have their own batteries. So we will revisit these point when we come to the battery management aspect of it. So we are doing machine learning forecasting. Why we are doing forecasting? Because wind speed is random. There is wind by nature is random. That means whatever wind speed you have right now it is 220. 10-minute, typically the application, the technique that we use here is called short-term wind forecasting. So short-term means every 10 minutes there has to be a forecast. Okay, so wind is random. So at 220 right now, if it is wherever you are, if it is 5 meters per second wind speed, at 230 wind speed may be 10 meters per second, and at 240 the wind speed may again be 3 meters per second. So this is what we mean as the stochastic nature of the wind speed. And because wind speed and the power that is generated from a wind turbine are related, there is a cubic formula. Okay, and there is a Bach's limit which says that only 59% of the theoretically possible power can be actually extracted. So wind is random, and because of this we need forecasting. So we are going to talk about machine intelligent forecasting for hybrid wind farms which have batteries. Okay, so this is the context. So I hope my slides are moving. Just want to check.
Yes, yes, sir.
Yeah. Okay, great. Thank you. Thanks for the confirmation. So we are going to talk about three different aspects primarily. Okay, obviously the hybrid wind forecasting technique, which I spoke about in the title, that we will elaborate on that. That is one aspect. We are also going to do multi-criteria decision making for these hybrid wind farms. So that is the second. And then the third aspect is the life enhancement of this battery energy storage system for these hybrid wind farms. So these are three independent techniques which will be used in an integrated fashion and for a overall benefit for the wind farm. So we'll see how we do that. Okay. So the genesis of this is from a US patent that we filed. I was at GE Global Research from 2012 to 2015. And in that period, in 2014, we filed this US patent. So the patent is already granted. You can see from this number, this 8-digit number indicates that it's a granted patent number. Before that, there will be a 10-digit application number. So this patent is granted in 2018. Okay, it was filed in 14. So what it is, it's a very simple technique that enabled GE to get 0.8% annual electric power output from the wind farms enhancement. So 0.8% enhancement from one particular wind farm in the outskirts of Stockholm in Germany, where GE had its own wind farm. It enabled GE to benefit or to increase profitability by $350,000. Okay, so that is the scale. Okay, 0.8% increase in annual electric power output gave that benefit. So how it was achieved? So the process is very simple. Okay, so Dr. Ravish invited me for this talk. So let us say this wind farm 1 is owned by Dr. Ravish, and this wind farm 2 is owned by me. Okay. So this is a barter system. So in the sense that, let us say Dr. Ravish grows tomatoes and I grow potatoes. So in the good old days, we would not go to the market to get tomatoes and potatoes, because potatoes, if I'm growing, I am having them with me already. And tomatoes, my friend Ravish is growing, so he is having tomatoes. So whatever tomatoes I need, I take from him. And whatever potatoes he needs, he takes from me. We have an exchange. Let's say one potato is, or 1.5 potatoes is equal to one tomato, something like that. We will set up a exchange formula, right? So this is barter system. Other things we will purchase, this we will not purchase. So in a wind farm, why this kind of technique is used, or why a wind farm would be interested in any barter? Because understand, wind is a random source. Okay. And this technique is used in US, in Europe, in Australia, wherever wind has been used as the sole source of power. In whichever utility guarantees that, yes, I will give you guaranteed power to the end user based on wind as the original source. There you cannot say that, okay, I will have wind is random, so I will generate random power. And so I will randomly, sometimes I will give, sometimes I will not give. So that is not possible. So, but you will say, but hang on, Professor Dev, you said that you already have batteries. So why you want to only give when you have, and when you don't have, you will not give? You can always use your battery. Yes, we can use the batteries, and that is why the battery is there. But wind has something called as ramp event. What is ramp event? Ramp event means right now at 226, if wind is 5 meters per second, after 10 minutes, the wind may be 12 meters per second. So that's an increase, more than 140% increase in the wind speed. And again at 246, maybe wind speed drops to 2 meters per second. So that's a reduction from 12 meters per second to 2 meters per second. That's a 600% reduction. Okay. So these are ramp events. That means these will cause the batteries. If battery have to support, if I have guaranteed that I will give 8 meters per second equivalent wind power, then the shortfall I have to provide from the battery, or I have to charge the surplus into the battery, right? So battery will see deep charging or deep discharging. And as you will soon see, that will lead to depletion of the battery fast, and that is not recommended. So in this thing, what we have done, very simple thing. Okay. We have, sorry, I just inadvertently went to the next slide. Yeah. So in this case, what we are doing, the neighboring wind farm, okay, who are also connected to the same grid, may, if they have surplus and we have shortfall, instead of me supporting everything from my battery, I can have the neighboring wind farm pump. Neighboring means not like 100 meters apart. Neighboring means here 100 to 200 miles apart. Okay, but they are still connected to the same grid. So in the scale of wind farms, this is neighbor. So if the neighboring wind farm has surplus wind at a given point of time, they can pump the additional amount that they don't need right now to the utility on behalf of us. So as a result, I will save the amount of too much of charging and discharging of the battery. So battery life will be enhanced. At the same time, we will escape paying the penalty. What is penalty? Penalty means if you say that I will deliver this much amount of power, and if you fail to do so because you don't have sufficient wind speed at that time, then the utility will penalize you. this system is not yet there in India. Means in India में क्या है कि battery भी use नहीं होता कई सारे wind farm में तो. So what happens is whatever you are generating, you are giving it to the battery. If there is surplus, also you are giving. If it is shortfall, also you are giving. And annually, whatever you have given, based on that, you are paid. So that's not a very, that is not, that can work only if wind is your secondary source. But you don't want wind to always remain secondary source. And that is why penalty system is there in most developed countries. So to avoid the amount of penalty or huge penalty, because we want to increase our annual profitability, so we want to reduce the penalty that is to be given. And so that can be easily done by sharing across multiple wind farms. So you can see the idea is very simple, but there was no prior art of this. And so we got a patent on it. So this thing, whatever is there here, we have already spoken about it. Some more things that we will deal with is that we will talk about turbulent wakes, how they affect, okay, and we will talk about decision making. So let's move to our, I'll skip this also. Let's talk about what are the different three aspects that we will deal with in this problem. So first thing is wind forecasting, okay. The second one is wake management and then decision making. And like I was saying that there will be an integrated solution that we will pick. So first, let us start with wind forecasting. So the first objective, there are three objectives, okay, like just like these three Venn diagrams, okay, these three circles, and they overlap. This is the integrated solution part is the one where all three of them are present. Okay, this is the common area. Okay. So first thing, how we do the forecasting. So the hybrid machine intelligent or machine learning based forecasting, it uses a time series model of the wind speed. Like I said, wind is stochastic and pre-processing happens, which removes the volatility. Wavelet transform is used in conjunction with machine learning methods. Okay. And these wavelets are of a specific type called Dobashi's DB4. Okay. And like I said at the very outset, we don't have a lot of data points. The reason is that if you take wind speed 5 days ahead of time to predict what will be, see what this forecasting requires is short-term wind forecasting. Short-term means that right now, for example, 2:32 p.m. it is. In 10 minutes, what will be the wind speed? You have to forecast. Because why wind speed you have to forecast? Because based on that, you will know what will be the wind power that will be generated from the wind turbine. And so you will know what should you predict, what should you promise. If you promise a certain value, if you fail to do so, you will pay, or the difference will be paid in penalty or has to be provided from battery, right? So it is not, doesn't make sense to use data of like 10 days ago or 15 days ago, right? So 1000 data points is good enough. And so we take 800 points of training and 800 points of testing. Okay, so this is what we do. Okay, and we use support vector regressor as VR that you see over here and its variants. There are 3 variants, means 3. Those are also support vector regressor, but those are some special type of support vector regressor. We'll talk about it. Okay, so we utilize machine learning techniques, apply it on 1000 data points, training 800 and testing 200 to make our prediction. So we basically, like I said, we want to have this barter system with neighboring wind farms. So to have a realistic prediction, we must find out some neighboring wind farms which are there and make a deal with them. So for this, we have taken 3 from whom we got actual data because they had GE turbines. So we were able to get data from them. So Paxton, Blandford and Bishop and Clark's, these are 3 wind farms in Massachusetts in the east coast of United States. Okay. So those are 3. And then there is the Sotavento in Spain. That is the 4th one. Why we have taken that? Simply because Sotavento, if you go ahead and type Sotavento, I have not checked it today, but this is the wind farm website, which gives you freely available data. Data is there, real-time data is there of current wind speed and things like that. And all the different parameters, including the terrain and things like that are monitored, and that data is freely given. Not all wind farms do so. And so we were able to get data from Sotavento and these 3. So these are the 4 wind farms with which we do this initial forecasting study. And as you will see in this talk, there are many other wind farms also which we have subsequently analyzed for different aspects. So what do we do with this data? Okay, we have a mean wind speed, we have max and mean of the maximum and the minimum wind speed data shown over here, the standard deviation. So the data is a realistic data, all these data. We find out the root mean square error of this. We found there are Thiel's statistics U1. So these are our metrics. Okay, any data set has to be validated, the robustness has to be studied in the context of these values, these errors. Okay, so what we do is that here you see in this table, in the forecasting results table, you have 5 different techniques that have been compared. Okay, there is this persistence technique. I will tell you what this is. And there are 4 different variants of support vector regressor: epsilon SVR, least square support vector regressor, twin support vector regressor, and this epsilon twin support vector regressor. So these are the 4 variants of SVR that we use, and persistence is one such other technique. What is persistence? So persistence simply means, I am sorry, there is a background noise over here, but actually I am up in the Himalayas. There is usually not much disturbance, but some construction work is happening nearby, which is beyond my control. So I hope that they will stop this soon, and you may follow.
No, it's
what
not
I'm
bothering
saying.
much, sir.
Okay. So what is this persistence? Persistence simply means that there is, let's say now it is 237. So I want to predict what is at 247, right? So to do the wind speed calculation at 247, persistence is a very simple technique. It says that find out the last 10 data points. That means, so 238 right now. So 228, 218, 208, 148, 128, 138, 128, like that. You take all the wind speed values of last 10 points and simply average it out and say that that is the forecast. So at 238, I am right now at 238. I am predicting for 248, and I'm using the last 10 data points of 10 minutes apart and simply taking average and saying, okay, now you will say, sir, but that is not, this is a very stupid kind of technique. Average, how average? And then when 248 actually comes, after 10 minutes, 248 will come. So at that time, we will measure the actual wind speed, and the prediction that we did at 238 for 248 Okay, that error we will find, and that is the root mean square error and mean absolute error and things like that, right? But why I am doing this average thing? Why all this support vector regressor or any advanced machine learning algorithm is not only used? Why am I comparing with persistence? The reason is I have to first establish that these machine learning techniques are working well. And for that, I need a baseline method. So baseline is this persistence. Any technique you use, because any advanced machine learning algorithm you take, it will use some computation time. Okay, it is not so matlab, you have to choose which one to use, which is doing better. There should be some metric, right? So these have to do better than persistence. Everyone will agree, because persistence doesn't need any machine learning. It's very simple technique. So they have to do better. So first, we are checking with persistence. So at persistence, you see, for example, if you use persistence for this data set, RMSE is giving 0.7241. But you see, epsilon TSVR is doing 9 times better. TSVR is doing like 35 times better. Okay. Least square support vector is doing almost 7 times better. Right. So you know that these machine learning techniques are actually doing well. You have to first compare with any persistence or any simple ready to use kind of method, which is not machine learning, which is some basic algebra we may have. Okay, that is the first check one has to do. So now we find that these machine learning algorithms are doing much better. So definitely there is a case to be made that I should use machine learning algorithm. Now, which one of these should I use? So we find that epsilon TSVR and TSVR, they are outperforming the others if you compare with root mean square error. So root mean square error is a one particular type of error metric that one has to use. Mean absolute error is one more. Okay, so we check across all of these. We also check that what is the computation time if I am using these. Okay, so in terms of computation time, you see this in red. The least square support vector regressor is good. Okay, is the best. But in terms of RMSE and in terms of overfitting, because any data is there, there should not be overfitting. So in terms of overfitting and RMSE, two particular methods, that is epsilon TSVR, this fourth one, and TSVR, the third one. These are doing better. Okay, and their competition time is not so much. Okay. Okay, and of course you will say, okay, but persistence mein competition time is less. Of course, if you just are averaging, then competition time will be less. But with data computation not being such a challenge anymore, so competition time is not the only criteria. Okay. So, but we primarily want good performance in terms of RMSE, MAE, SR, SSR, and SST, and overfitting should not be there. So we are seeing that at this stage, TSVR and epsilon TSVR are doing good. Okay, this is not a conclusive statement. We will see going ahead when we will look at other Venn diagrams whether these still do good. We'll come back to this slide and validate that yes, okay, now these we finally are seeing this, and that was also validated in slide number 9. Okay, so let's move ahead. So we also do something called as robustness. What is robustness? I will not go into the math of it right now, but these techniques are required. Why? This is a one particular robustness test called Diamond-Mariano test. So basically, see, try to understand a simple thing that let us say I give you one data set, 1,000 points. You do testing and training, and then you make some prediction based on that data set. Okay, you may say TSVR or epsilon TSVR like this, whichever you used, and you made some prediction. Now tomorrow I give you some other data set, and your data set gives you completely different result. That says that no, epsilon SVR is best. Okay. or let's say persistence is best, that says. So you will not then, if every time a data set is different and then the prediction is completely different, then such a data set is of no use and the technique is also of no use. But data set is the actual data, so you cannot do anything about the data set. So you have to blame the technique, right? So if the robustness is good, this will not happen. Okay, so that's why you have to check the robustness of your technique. Okay, so in terms of robustness, we see that for all these 4 data sets, the value is, the robustness value should be more than 1. Okay, so that is a primary requirement. If it is less than 1, that means that it has failed. The robustness is failed. And they are all doing, we did 2 tests for 2 different conditions for all these 4 wind farms, and we find that under both the tests, the data sets have the efficacy of this has been good. So in test 1 we used epsilon TSVR, and in test 2 we used TSVR. Okay, we compared the TSVR with the classical SVR, and in test 1 we compared epsilon TSVR with the classical SVR. So that many times more robust it has shown. Okay. So moving ahead. Now, so at this stage, so I have done the wind forecasting part. Okay. And at this stage, it seems to us that if I go back and just highlight this for you, at this stage, it seems that the TSVR and epsilon TSVR are the good forecasting techniques. They are robust also. Okay, they are performing multiple times. They are showing multiple times more robust than the standard SVR. Okay, so that is good, but that is not enough because we have only checked the wind forecasting. We also have to do decision making and wake management. So let us now go to the second objective, which is decision making. Okay, so what is that? So let me just quickly take you to the alternatives, and that will make it very clear. So what is it that I have to decide? So in this, I use multi-criteria decision making. It is not invented by me. Multi-criteria decision making has been used in supply chain management for the last 50 years. Okay. So multi-criteria decision making does what? But no one has used it in wind farm forecasting or wind farm, hybrid wind farms before us. Okay. So what does this multi-criteria decision making does? See, I have to decide something. What is that decision? Every dispatch window, I may pay penalty. I may borrow from the neighboring farm. I may use my battery. Okay. Or I may borrow from the neighboring farm and use my battery, some combination. So these are the 4 alternatives that we pick. First alternative is pay penalty. Means whatever shortfall is there, don't bother using battery. Okay, right now it may seem very ridiculous to you, but just bear with me. Soon we'll see the result of this technique. So first alternative is that for every dispatch window, that means I am now at 248. I am predicting the wind speed at 258. And when 258 actually comes, there is the wind speed at 258. And there is a wind speed that I had said it will be at 258. So there is a difference in the wind speed. That difference in wind speed is equal to the difference. It can be used to calculate the difference in the wind power that would be generated. And if I am having shortfall, I have to pay penalty to the utility. So it's a simple thing. The number of dispatch windows, if it is K, okay, in any year, that I have to add the difference between what I said it will be and what it is. Okay, that many times the cost for the penalty. So there is a weightage beta. Okay, so that is the total penalty that I will pay for forecast error. I was supposed to forecast correctly using any technique I have. And let's say I failed to correctly forecast. I will pay penalty. Whenever I pay penalty, that will add up over with some weightage. So that is the total penalty that I am paying. This is alternative 1. Okay. The alternative 2 is that I pay penalty for using battery up to a certain threshold, and remaining part I use the battery. Okay, so it's a combination of, because I don't want to use the battery completely. Okay, and also I don't want to pay the penalty fully. Okay, so it's a combination of paying penalty for using the battery up to a certain threshold. Okay, this is alternative 2. Sorry, I went back. I should move forward. Okay, so the alternative 3. Alternative 3 is an idea generated from our US patent, where we are paying penalty for borrowing deficit power from neighboring wind farm. Okay, so I am paying penalty, but I am not directly paying to the utility. Remember, sometimes I will have surplus, sometimes my neighboring wind farm will have surplus. If sometimes he is paying, he is giving to the utility on behalf of me, and sometimes I am giving on behalf of him, we can have a balance sheet for the entire year such that if he gave to the utility more often, let's say he gave 500 times and I gave 350 times. So only the difference, 150 times, I have to pay him because he gave more than me, right? So that's a much lesser burden than paying 500 times for both of us to pay to the utility 500 times, or a weighted average of 500 times, right? So that is why this helps. So this is alternative 3, but whether it actually helps or not, I will show you in actual data. And the alternative 4 is that forget about any business of penalty. No penalty given to the neighboring wind farm, not to the end user or the utility. Simply whatever, I will have battery large enough that whenever there is any shortfall, I take from the battery. And whenever there is surplus, I save into the battery. So I will not have to pay any penalty, but I will pay some price based on battery life consumption. So let us see what happens. So we do this on, we have applied this on this decision making criteria on a 3 wind farm topology. And not only we have done it in these data sets, we have also done it, for example, a hypothetical scenario of 3 wind farms. These are not actual wind farms, okay? Because in India, this penalty system is not there. In India, the wind farms, some of them don't even have batteries with them. They, whatever they are generating, if you go to the Venkatachala hills in Tirupati or anywhere like that, where these large wind farms are there, wind turbines are there, they are generating wind power, but they are dumping to the utility whatever they are getting, and on a yearly basis they are getting some money. But surplus or deficit is not being considered. But here in a hypothetical scenario, if there are 3 wind farms like this, and we have a national grid, so if we pump to the grid directly, what will happen? That kind of topology is being shown over here. So sorry, it again came back here. Okay, so there are 4 alternatives. Okay, what happens? So I will not go into the detail of the multi-criteria decision making. I will simply take you to the to the three different multi-criteria decision-making techniques and what results they give. So there are three techniques that we compared: SAW, TOPSIS, and COPRAS. Okay, you can look up the math of this is not very important right now for this understanding, but the fact that all three of them give us the same result. So I will just take you to this. So we have some scores and we are evaluating, we are ranking the alternatives A1, A2, A3, A4. What is A1? A1 is pay penalty every single time. What is A2? A2 is up to a certain threshold, okay, use the battery and then pay the penalty. Okay. Alternative 3 is engage the neighboring wind farm. And alternative 4 is don't pay penalty at all, only use the battery. So now see the ranking and you will be, so number 1 and number 2, when I first analyzed this, I obviously expected that number 3 will be best because we are borrowing from the neighboring wind farm, and just with some numbers I showed you that 500 times if he is giving to the utility on behalf of me, and 350 times I give to the utility on behalf of him, then the difference, he gave more 150 times, so I simply have to pay him for that, right? So that is naturally going to be more economical for us. So it is not a surprise that A3 is number 1 in the ranking, and this is true for all the techniques. Okay, so COPRAS and TOPSIS we found for these three top multi-criteria decision-making techniques, the ranking is the same. 1 and number 2, yes, sometimes we are using battery and some part of it up to a certain threshold we are using battery, and and beyond that we are paying the penalty. So that also makes sense. It is number 2. But what I was more surprised, and if you are surprised right now, I am not. I understand you. Is that the A4 was the worst. A3 was better. That means what? Paying penalty, मतलब जितना ज्यादा है या कम है, don't worry, simply pay penalty. That turned out to be better than don't pay any penalty, means conservative, ekdam कंजूस, and simply think that I will use my battery. That is worst. So the A4 is worst. A1 is at least better than A4. Okay, so that means what this tells us, and all these three techniques are saying the same thing. What this tells us is battery is very, very important. So initially when we started out doing this research, we thought about forecasting and then decision making. These two was very clear to us that we have to do. Okay, so you see in the Venn diagram, I will go back to the Venn diagram. Okay, these two, wind forecasting and decision making, we knew that we have to do, and we have to do in such a way that these two are overlapping. Okay, but then when we find that all these three multi-criteria decision making techniques point to the same conclusion, that battery usage is the worst. Battery usage is the worst means relying entirely on the battery is the worst. Then what we have to do? We have to do something about battery life. And that is what will take us to the third part of the Venn diagram of wake management. So we continue on this. Okay, so this is our third objective. So like I said, originally we had started out with wind forecasting and decision making. We knew that we have to do both of this. Okay, and we have to ideally be in this common region. But because battery life is so critical, we have to do something such that the enhancement of battery life happens. And this we do using what we call as wake management. So here, please pay close attention to this figure. Okay. I will try to increase the size of this just for for that. Yeah. Okay. So I hope you are still able to see my slide, right? Hello? Hello?
Yes, sir, visible.
Yeah, visible, right? Okay, I was trying to increase the size of this figure so that you can see the,
Yes.
yeah. I hope these two turbines are visible to you.
Yeah, it is visible.
Yeah. 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 So WT1 and WT2. Okay, so there is a, imagine, so uh, many of you are from, at least Dr. Ravish is from Gujarat. Okay, so think of it that this free stream velocity V naught is coming from the Arabian Sea. Okay, and think of those of you who have gone to the Somnath temple, you know that the boundary wall of Somnath temple is next to the, at least some section of it is next to the Arabian Sea. Okay, so the, while sitting in the compound of the Somnath temple, you can actually have a full view of the Arabian Sea. So imagine this is a turbine WT1, which is on the periphery of the Somnath temple, and there is no obstruction or any surface, any object here. And the entire free stream V naught, if velocity, whatever it may be, 8 meter per second, 9 meter per second at any instant of time, that is able to be impacted on the turbine blade here. There is no structure here which will prevent the conversion of this wind speed into the wind power. Okay, so that is why this will be called as free stream velocity. And this WT1 is the upwind turbine, which is finding the entire wind speed. Okay, makes sense? Now, because you know that the wind power that will be generated is a cubic formula whose input is this wind speed. So if there is anything which reduces the wind speed, the wind power will also reduce. Okay, if it becomes 0.9, if this V naught becomes 0.9 V naught, then the power that will be generated is 0.9 V naught cube ka proportional. So it is 0.729 of that of the entire power. So you see how fast the power will reduce if the free stream velocity is reduced. So we don't want wind wake. Okay. But like I say here, wind wakes cannot be avoided completely. What is wind wake actually? Is that this is the downstream wind turbine. Okay, WT2. Okay, WT2, if it is, and there is a lot of practical study and mathematics which shows that the downstream, okay, downstream means the turbine which is coming after this, okay, downstream of the wind speed. If that turbine is at least 4 diameter away from this, that means this X that I'm showing, the X that I'm showing between the two turbines, if that X is at least 4 times the diameter of the turbine blade. Diameter means, see, there is a hub here, okay? It is not a point actually, it's like a, like a, fan you have, right? So you can think of the central part of the fan. Okay, of course, much larger for wind turbines. But if I neglect that part, because the turbine blade radius is much higher than this. Okay, so if you neglect the small circle that is there in at the center, then the diameter is at least 2 times of this radius of the turbine blade, right? Now that diameter of the turbine we will call as this, the end to end. If you do a circle around this turbine, whatever the diameter that is the diameter of the wind turbine. 4 times of that diameter away, if you put the downstream turbine, then that will also get V naught. That the wind speed will not reduce. But you don't have the luxury of so much of land, right? Land is very precious. So practically it will not be possible to keep all turbines 4 diameter apart. Sometimes 3 you will keep because of lack of land. So when you do that, you will encounter wind wake. Okay, because this turbine will not get the entire wind speed. So one technique that we find that is effective in reducing the in preventing the reduction in the wind speed for the downstream turbine is by yawing the turbine blade. So the yaw angle of the turbine blade, if you change, okay, then of this upstream turbine, then this turbine will not directly impact the wake that it will produce will not impact the downstream turbine. So we find that 5-degree yawing is very effective. Okay. So that is what we do going forward. Okay. I will not talk that much on the, and let me now reduce the size again because I had just to show that figure I had increased it. So the battery models are used. A specific energy reservoir model was used. There are many advanced battery models that you can use. But the conclusion that I'm going to make is agnostic to the model itself. So I'm not going to talk about the math of this battery model. I'm going to go directly to the analysis of the data. Okay. So there are two things that we do over here. And like I said in the beginning, we will go beyond those 4 wind farms, one in Sotavento and then 3 in Massachusetts. Okay, we are now here. I am showing you 2 other wind farms data that we have taken. And then soon I will show you 6 other wind farms. So totally 12 wind farms we studied. Okay. So for this wake management, there are 3 cases we see. Of course, case number 1 is not something that we evaluate because it is not realistic. That means when there is no wake effect, then of course you don't have to yaw. But wake effect will be there because you cannot put the turbines so far away apart from each other. So case 1 is just a hypothetical or theoretical scenario. Okay, so case 2 and case 3 is what we are interested. Case 2 says what? That you are not doing any wake management. So you will not yaw the turbine, upstream turbine blade. Wake is there, but you are dealing with it. You are not changing anything. Means you are okay with going ahead with the reduction of the wind speed in the downstream turbine. Okay. So that is called without wake management. So here I don't change the yaw angle. In case 3, we are changing the yaw angle and doing the wake management. And we find that with 5-degree change in the yaw angle, we get the best wake management. So, and we do this for 2 different data sets in Chalicum in Australia and Longwan in Tibet. So as you can see here, this is very revealing. This data is very revealing. You have these 2 data sets from Chalicum and Longwan, Z1 and Z2. And we have this battery energy storage system rating. Okay, let's say if you have batteries of 500 kilowatt hour, then case 2 and case 3 is case 2 is without wake management and case 3 is with wake management. You can see that we are able to save battery. Life cycles means the battery when it is charging, let's say in one particular dispatch window, and in the next dispatch window it is again charging. In the third dispatch window, let's say it is again charging. In the fourth dispatch window, it is discharging. Then you will say one cycle has happened, charging and discharging. When charging and discharging cycle is over one cycle, that will be called as one life cycle. So like this, you see that 15% savings is happening when you are in telecom, if you are having a 500 kilowatt hour. Of course, this makes sense because if you have a larger battery, then the savings will be less because the effect of wake is less when the battery size is larger, because they are the deep discharge, and the battery, a larger battery is able to take deeper discharge and charge, right? So, but still, the conclusion here is that you see at least 5%, battery life saving we are able to get simply by yawing the turbine blade by 5 degrees. So this is very important. So if we do yawing of the turbine blade, if we do the forecasting using those certain techniques, and if we do the decision making appropriately, together we can get a very good result. So this is turning out to be very promising. So now in this particular work, of course, now once you want to do an integrated solution, you have to find a optimal, you have to come up with the optimization function. Okay, so J is a function like that, where there is this capital J and then this small I and small j. So this small j is 1, 2, 3, 4, which are the penalty costs. Okay, so you can have error in forecasting, or you can have battery threshold exceeded, or deficit power borrowed from neighboring farm, and the deficit power supplied from battery. These are the 4 different alternatives that you had, right? So with 4 different alternatives and these three objectives, we come up with this optimization function. Okay, so now I'll just come take you to the, so I'm see batteries charge algorithms and all we have used, but I'm not speaking right now on this because I want to focus entirely on how we zero in on the techniques. Okay, so and if there are specific questions we can come to this, but I want to straight away take you here. So basically what we have done, we have 3 different costs, right? For forecasting there will be some cost involved, for decision making there is some cost, and for wake management there is some cost. We simply say that okay, all these costs have to be appended together into a combined common metric. Okay, if we use advanced optimization algorithm, this can be done in a much more improved way, but at least even with a very simple thing like adding these things, we still get very good results. That is what I want to show you. And for this combined study, what we have done, we have taken 6 wind farms. Okay, just focus here. There are 3 wind farms which are offshore. Offshore means something which is in the sea. Okay, so because land is very scarce and wind farms require large piece of land, so sometimes people build it in the sea. So offshore wind farms 3, and onshore means on the land 3 more we have considered. Okay, and we are checking with the 2 good techniques that we had, TSVR and epsilon TSVR. Okay, which originally I told you I'll bring you back to slide number 9 before I conclude anything. So this is slide number 9. Slide number 9 told us that TSVR and epsilon TSVR were the best. Okay, we had concluded here. So now what we are doing is that again I'll go back to slide number 34 now. So in slide number 34, now what we are doing, we have taken those 2 best support vector regressor techniques, okay, and applied this forecasting metric on 6 wind farms: Gemini, Vejamata, Walney, Clyde, McCain Foods, and this thing that I don't spell very well, offshore and onshore wind farms. And we find that, okay, now you see TSVR is there, epsilon TSVR there, and there are two other. What is this? RFR is random forest, and GBM is gradient boosted machines. Those who work in machine learning techniques, they rate these two methods very highly. So we have compared our support vector regressor methods with this, and we find that actually TSVR does much better than these. TSVR does much better than these across all of them. So naturally, we will consider, we in slide number 9, we had concluded that epsilon TSVR and TSVR both are very good. But here we have now zeroed in on TSVR. Okay. So this is with cost V1. Then as we move ahead, see, I told you that we are going to use battery. We checked in that alternative 2, that if we can use battery up to a certain threshold and then you pay the penalty. So what is that threshold which is ideal? So that is cost 2. So if you, again, I will like to increase the size here, because then I can show you this change. Okay, I think now it is large enough. Yeah. So see, as and maybe I can just, yeah, okay. So I think you can now see. Okay, so thing is, just focus here. These are this 0.8, 0.75, 0.885. These are the threshold of usage of battery. Means 70% usage, 75% usage, 80% usage, 85% usage. Okay, so use battery and pay penalty combination, right? So what is best? This indicates that the cost reduces as I am increasing this, right? So, but after 0.8, so the threshold is that 80% is the threshold. Beyond that, again, the cost will increase. Okay. So don't do charging. So this says that don't do charging and discharging beyond 80%. So that is why some of you, I mean, this is something now many laptops have this. This I had given many years ago a project to my students that, to study the battery life of a laptop. If you keep the battery, if you keep the adapter connected whole night, you keep like this, if you do for 15 days, 1 month, 2 months, like that, the life of the battery of the laptop diminishes very fast. This was very easy to see in those days because there was no auto switch off when the battery is already charged. There was no automatic plug out, which it happened. Nowadays, most systems come with that, and so it doesn't allow you to try to overcharge. But this is also validated here that up to 80% if you do, it is fine. But if you go beyond that, if you try to do deep discharge or deep charging, then the cost is again increasing. Okay, so this is our V2, which shows that so the optimal or the minimum is at this ratio of 0.8. Okay, and this holds for all the wind farms. The one of them is being shown over here. So the third one is the cost V3, which is for the wake management. And when we do wake management, also we study it with respect to the forecasting algorithms. So here also we find that the support vector regressor or the T support vector regressor does best. So both in V1 and V3, that is wake management and forecasting, we find that this is doing very good. Okay, with 5 degree of yaw angle, and the battery threshold 0.8 is also doing very good. So the number of distinct, this is also an important study, that number of distinct battery state charge. Distinct means charging and discharging. That is one state charge. Okay. And then again, discharging, charging, discharging. If it happens like that, then it is 2. Okay. So every time it changes and comes back to the same state, you will count it as 1. Okay. So this by that kind of counting, if you use gradient boosted machines, you will have for these 6 wind farms, you will have this many number of state charges. And so we want less. We don't want high battery consumption or repetition of charging, discharging. So we find that TSVR is doing very good. Okay, so TSVR in all the fronts is doing well in this study. So we also check this at other thresholds. Okay, we find that the TSVR still does, these numbers don't change. If I take H1 and H3 as 1, okay, of course, this is not an optimal number. The weights also can be optimized using advanced meta heuristic algorithms. But this gives us an indication that this simple optimization technique also gives an indication that TSVR and thresholding at 0.8 is doing very well. So this is what the message is, and this is where I will end and then take questions. So basically, TSVR. So the conclusions are TSVR is yielding minimum cost for all the data sets. The farm of operator has economic benefit when we go for thresholding at 0.8. Superior battery technologies and all will lead to operation near this point, because as just like how laptop batteries have evolved and now this technique of switching is there, so that will also help in this. Okay, battery health significantly improved with superior forecast. Okay, and in future, what are the different things that future means? Already now people are doing some of these, is that predictive analytics of turbine. See, we are saying that this is, let's say there is a wind speed and then there is a power capture, and a wind turbine is generating some power from this. But what if there is some, let's say, oil industry waste, oil deposit on the turbine blade? Then the power capture will not be there, even if the free stream wind speed is there, right? So there is a need to do regular maintenance of the turbine blade in terms of any oily stuff which is coming on the turbine blade, or let's say there is a crack in the turbine blade, then also there should be a predictive maintenance. So there are techniques now, diagnostic health management techniques, which can predict ahead of time when the turbine will have to be shut down and maintenance has to be done. So normally, and this is a big challenge, this is not something that is easy to do, because if a turbine has a problem and suddenly it stops, then to fix it will take a long time. That means to fix it will require you to bring engineers. They have to climb up to the turbine blade, and then fix it. And also it takes 3-4 days typically, because these wind farms are a little bit away from the habitats. So ahead of time predicting when such a thing will happen will enable maximization of power capture. Okay, and ramp events require specific economic analysis. Okay, the ramp event, like I said again, is the when wind speed changes drastically in a short time. So for all these things, if we use advanced meta heuristic algorithms, we can increase the annual power electric output of a wind farm even more. So that with that, I will stop here, and I will request Ravish, Dr. Ravish, if there are questions, I would like to take them now.
Yes, participants, if you have any question, please ask. Sir, there are some questions on the chat box, if you can
Yeah,
access.
yeah, I'm just feeling. Um,
X.
Visible. Okay, where kindly share the. Yeah, so PPT. I will email you the my PPT so
Yes, sir.
you can share with all the participants. Okay. Then next question is if x equal to 4D is maintained, then your angle should be 0. No. See, if x equal to 4D, then theoretically, it's a very good question because maybe when I said it, maybe there is a insinuation or assumption that it will be like that. No. X equal to 4D is theoretically the minimum distance that is required to ensure that there is no wind wake. But you see, the terrain has a surface that if you assume that everything is smooth, okay, and then atmospheric aspects and things like that, there is some reduction in the wind speed even when there is when you have x equal to 4D. X equal to 4D is the absolute bare minimum you need to have minimal wind wake. Wind wake will still be there. You'd like, and so that is why in my slide also I have written that you cannot completely avoid it. You can say that it can be avoided if it is like you can make it x equal to 10D or 15D, then you can make it 0. Otherwise, it will not be 0. It can be very small. But the yaw angle is something, if you can change, basically what yaw angle is doing, it is aligning the downstream turbine to see the, basically, see when you yaw it, basically the free stream wind speed is coming to both the upwind and the downwind turbines, and it is coming at a slightly different time. So one is not impeding the other. So that is the benefit you get in yaw angle. So in my understanding, yaw angle should be always done. Means some amount of yawing of the turbine blade is always beneficial. Okay. If we change yaw angle for first turbine, then what it will be for second turbine? Yeah. So second turbine is the very good question. Second turbine will not have yawing because of the first turbine. Second turbine can have yawing because of another turbine which may be downstream of that. Okay. So downstream turbine is not affected by upstream turbine, but see, downstream turbine is not always the last turbine, right? There will be other turbines which will follow. This is just an example of two turbines I've shown. There will be a third turbine which is also in this line, 4D apart further, right? Because typically these large wind farms have 52, 65, this kind of numbers of turbines. So large number of turbines. Okay, that's there. There's an informative release. Okay, thank you, thank you. I don't see more questions,
Yeah.
Chiragji.
Yes,
But
sir.
if anyone wants to ask a question, they can also, we can allow them to ask right now also.
Yes, if you have any question, participant, you can raise your hand. We'll allow you to speak. We'll unmute. Okay, I think, sir, there is no more question at this point.
Okay, and so I
Okay.
will share my slides with Ravish,
Yes, yes, sir.
and I request that these be made available to the attendees, and any questions are there at any time. Uh, Anyone can ask me subsequently also after going through. So
Okay,
thank you so
sir.
much, Dr.
Thank,
Chirag and Dr. Ravish. Thank you so much.
thank you very
Thank
much,
you.
sir, for a very informative session.
Sorry, the